Shalom, my friends. Welcome to this week's newscast. Since the last military conflict in Gaza last year, in July and August, Hamas has been working to restore and build up its strength in advance of the next conflict with Israel, renewing its excavation of tunnels, manufacturing rockets, building up its weapons stores, conducting military training exercises, and establishing army camps. In recent days, Hamas's Izz-ad-Din al-Qassam brigades have boasted that their bases close to the Israeli border have been repaired and are ready to confront Israel's military. Hamas is once again diverting concrete designated for rebuilding people's homes and using it to build tunnels and bunkers. Similarly, while the international community packs up the bill for Gaza's humanitarian needs, Hamas has found the resources to open 18 new terror training camps. And while Israel is easing restrictions on the flow of goods and people across its Gaza border, the Egyptian blockade of Gaza has now become almost total. Further, the IDF has begun erecting a 7-mile-long earth barrier along Israel's border with Lebanon in the northwestern Galilee to prevent the infiltration of Hezbollah terrorists into Israeli communities. Turning to wars and rumors of wars, on Tuesday, April 14th, security forces arrested 29 Hamas members in the West Bank. Last Tuesday night, the suspects were funded and orchestrated by Hamas overseas headquarters and sought to carry out terror attacks against Israel. It was reported that during the recent nuclear talks, North Korea has been supplying shipments of missile components to Iran, in violation of UN sanctions on both countries. The commander of a federal police force tasked with protecting Iraq's largest oil refinery was killed on Tuesday, along with 9 of his bodyguards, in fierce battles with ISIS near the town of Beji in Salahuddin province. Then on Wednesday, April 15th, it was reported last week that Hamas began using heavy machinery to accelerate the excavation of attack tunnels leading from Gaza under the Israeli border. Israeli security officials confirmed that Hamas was making great efforts to dig tunnels at a high speed. They also said Hamas was attempting to produce as many short-range rockets as possible. Israel has developed a new system using sensors to detect tunnel building activity. The system, the first of its kind in the world, will be implemented along the Israeli-Gaza border to protect Israeli citizens from infiltration by Hamas terrorists. The system enables the precise identification of tunnels without false alarms. Then a car driven by an Arab resident of East Jerusalem struck 2 Israelis waiting for a bus in the capital Wednesday night, killing Shalom Yochai Cherki, 25 years old, and seriously injuring an Israeli woman. Jerusalem has seen a string of car ramming attacks over the past year. Then on Thursday, April 16th, Egyptian President Sisi is fighting for his country's survival and his own. Despite the army's all-out effort to defeat Islamist insurgency in Sinai, there is no end in sight. F-16 fighter planes and Apache helicopters have joined the campaign, and security forces have killed or wounded hundreds of terrorists, but more keep coming. Ansar Beit al-Maqdis gunmen who have pledged allegiance to ISIS continue making daring raids against police stations and other security targets. More than 2,000 families have fled the Iraqi city of Ramadi, with little more than the clothes on their backs, as ISIS closed in on the capital of western Anbar province, clashing with Iraqi troops and turning it into a ghost town. On Friday, April 17th, Palestinian women, covered head to toe, surrounded a Jewish group who were walking through the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. The Palestinian women shouted, "The army of Muhammad is coming. We are guardians for the sake of Allah. Everybody must protect Al-Aqsa so the Jews don't take it." And the U.S. Navy has 7 combat ships in the waters around Yemen as the Saudi-led bombing campaign there continues. The ships include 2 destroyers, 2 minesweepers, and 3 amphibious ships carrying 2,200 Marines. Iran, which has been accused of arming the Houthi rebels, responded by sending Navy vessels of its own into the region this week. Yesterday, Monday, April 20th, Syrian army obliterated several terrorist hideouts belonging to the al-Nusra Front in Daraa, Quneitra, and Idlib. America's primary mistake is thinking that President Obama's outstretched hand is attractive to Iran. It is not. Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei does not want a deal with America. He wants to destroy America. When he calls America the Great Satan, or when he leads chants of death to America, he means it. Khamenei wants to go down in Islamic history as the man who defeated America, not the imam who signed a deal with the devil. He's willing to accept our surrender, but he will not forge a partnership with Obama. With U.S.-Israeli relations at arguably their lowest point in history, Russia's ties with Iran are suddenly growing much closer. This raises the question of whether the near-term deployment of an advanced Russian air defense system around Iran's most sensitive nuclear sites could actually make war in the near term more likely. Consider these headlines from last week. Washington Post op-ed by Israeli Defense Minister Moshe Ya'alon. Current Iran framework will make war more likely. Time magazine column. Obama's nuclear deal could mean war. Los Angeles Times. Israelis warn of increased risk of horrific war. Channel 7 News, Israel. Israel should seriously consider striking Iran, experts say. CBN News. Egyptian host to Israel. Put trust in God and bomb Iran. New York Post. Why Obama's Iran deal is a path to war. Russia is selling the mobile S-300 air defense missile system to Iran. The S-300 could dramatically complicate the airspace picture for strike planners, with the missile launchers moving around to evade reconnaissance. Iran could also lose a launcher and quickly deploy another one to fill the gap. It has nothing approaching this capability today. Defeating the S-300 in order to give a meaningful thump to the Iranian nuclear program would not require a conventional ground invasion, but it would require considerably more tactical air forces than the U.S. has in a ready status today. The S-300 forces a decision on the Israelis about what their threshold is. At what point do they decide they can't do enough damage after the S-300 is deployed, and that they must strike before it is deployed? There's a force sufficient to punch holes in the S-300 and do a meaningful, extensive, cost-effective amount of damage to Iran's nuclear program, and that is the combined attack assets of the U.S. and Israel. The United States changed its policy mid-negotiations, going from demanding that Iran be stripped of its nuclear weapons production capabilities to discussing the nature of the limitations and supervision placed on these capabilities. The framework deal clearly indicates that the U.S. has come to accept that Iran will one day possess military nuclear capabilities. And the short of it is, the U.S. can bring Iran's nuclear program to a halt, but is simply choosing not to. And that's the newscast for this week, my friends. Stay safe. Abba willing, I'll see you here next week. Until then, shalom.
Crowded rooms, I need more space than I consume. Enough is time alone with you, underneath a naked moon, sharing confidential moods and making chatter. Mockingbird nocturnal sings notations of eternal things, entering the quantum breeze, flying not for want of wings. He lights his gaze on you and me, simply because we matter.